After 25 years as a deep-sea diver, I uncovered a sinister secret. My partner now haunts me. The night was suffocating, thick with an eerie fog that clung to Jack Sullivan like a shroud. Every breath he took felt heavier as he stared out at the dark waves. Memories of his partner, Tom, clawing at the edges of his sanity. For 25 years, Jack had navigated the ocean's depths, yet nothing prepared him for the twisted nightmare that now haunted him. Tom's face, twisted in anger, appeared in his dreams, emerging from the depths, crying out for justice. Betrayal, the word echoed in his mind, as he replayed that fateful dive over and over again. The Harvest Festival approached, a cheerful backdrop to the decay of Maple Harbor. Families gathered under garlands of string lights, but the laughter felt hollow to Jack. Whispers hung in the air, sharp as broken glass, twisting reality into something sinister. Abandoned boats bobbed in the harbor, engines left humming, their metal hearts warmed by secrets. The town he called home had become a ghost itself, lost beneath a shroud of distrust and desperation. Jack's pulse quickened as he felt the ocean's call slithering through the night. It urged him to the shoreline where shadows danced beneath the surface, beckoning him closer. They were familiar shapes, but made grotesque. He could swear he saw Tom's silhouette lurking beneath the waves. A shiver ran down his spine as the whispers intensified, swirling around him like an approaching storm. The townspeople behaved oddly, casting furtive glances, muttering words that curled into the air like smoke. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A storm suddenly erupted, drenching the festival in chaos as people darted for cover. Jack, however, felt a magnetic pull toward the tumultuous sea. The roar of the waves drowned out reason, and he found himself staggering closer to the brink, desperation clawing at his heart. Then, he saw an unmistakable figure beneath the ferocious surf. It was Tom, eyes wide with a mix of rage and sorrow. His mouth moved, but the crashing waves swallowed the words. Jack stumbled back, breathless, stomach churning. What did Tom want? What lay beneath those waves? The answers, he feared, would pry open wounds painted in shades of guilt and betrayal. The legends of vengeful spirits tugged at him now, old stories of fishermen who paid a price for their greed, drenching the town in shadow. Darkened truths lurked just below the surface, and uncovering them could mean for Jack the difference between salvation or a descent into madness. As he looked out at the roiling sea, heart pounding, he faced the terrible truth. To clear Tom's name, to assuage the guilt that gnawed at him like a ravenous beast, he would have to dive deeper into darkness. What awaited him in those depths? With the storm raging at his back and shadows creeping closer, Jack stood frozen, caught between despair and a new path of terrifying unknowns. Would the truth bring him peace or plunge him into a horror he could scarcely imagine? As the storm lashed at the shoreline, Jack's heartbeat became a frantic drum inside his ears. He could hardly decipher the clamoring chaos around him. The world felt as if it were tearing apart. Home no longer felt safe. The whispers that had once been distant now swelled like a rising tide, seeping into his thoughts, wrapping around him tightly. Tom's face swam before him, fierce and unyielding. The rage in those hollow eyes was almost palpable, pressing against Jack's chest like a vice grip. He shivered, feeling the ocean's cold breath on his skin, as if it were trying to drag him under. Jack! The scream cut through the howling wind, low but urgent. It was Nina, Tom's sister, fighting her way toward him through the swirling wind and rain. Her face, usually bright with laughter, was twisted in terror. They're saying people are disappearing. They think it's the ocean it's angry. Her words slashed right through his layering fear, tightening the noose of dread around him. Disappearances? Voices of the drowned? Jack glanced toward the roiling sea where Tom had risen. The tide ebbed and flowed, a living thing stirred by nameless creatures from the deep. The ocean was no longer a friend he had known for years. It had become an abyss of uncertainty and terror. Nina, he began, but his voice faltered. How could he explain that the very waters he had trusted for a lifetime now threatened to expose him to horrors beyond comprehension? A sharp crack of thunder echoed overhead, and Jack's resolve splintered. Something was very wrong. The festival was shrouded in shadows now. The laughter he had once heard turned to an eerie silence. Renewed determination coursed through him, sparked by a primal instinct to uncover the truth. No matter what the cost, he turned toward her. We need to dive. We need to find out what is happening out there. He gestured toward the dark horizon, the storm raging above them. The water was angry, eager. Tom's presence loomed over him, demanding more than just acknowledgement. It demanded retribution. Nina's eyes widened, her breath hitched in fear. Are you insane? We can't go out there. The last team that went into the water, they never came back. With resolve, Jack grasped her shoulders tightly. If Tom's spirit is out there, I won't stop until I find him. The town's whispers they're only going to get worse. And if his name is to ever see the light again, we must dive. Nina shuddered, caught between loyalty to her brother and her instinct to protect herself. Fine, but if we do this, it needs to be now. As they prepared for the plunge into the depths, the storm howled in fury, and a creeping sense of dread slithered through Jack's mind. A darkness lay beneath the surface, alive and waiting. Ghostly fingers reached for him, urging him closer. Could he withstand what awaited them in the depths? Would he find redemption or simply provoke the wrath of the unknown? As they suited up, a shadow shifted beneath the water, swirling ominously, a familiar shape in the darkness. Tom. Jack's breath caught in his throat as the silhouette beckoned. The call was undeniable. He had to follow. With a final glance back at the shore, Jack took a deep breath. The ocean was alive, and it demanded a price. Ignoring the protests in his mind, he followed Nina into the abyss. What would they uncover in the black water below? As they dove deeper into the depths, the storm raged above, and a chilling realization seeped into Jack's bones. The darkness wasn't just waiting to be discovered, it was hungry. The water swallowed them whole, dark and thick, wrapping around Jack and Nina like a shroud. The roar of the storm above faded to a distant murmur, replaced by the muffled heartbeat of the ocean. Jack's body felt heavy, every stroke pulling him deeper into the inky depths, where light dared not venture. Nina's bubbles trailed behind her, spiraling upwards as she kicked harder, her fear visible even through the layers of their diving suits. They descended further, the taste of salt and dread mixing in Jack's mouth. His heart pounded loudly in his ears, each beat echoing the growing urgency to find Tom or whatever had taken him. That a flicker caught Jack's eye. Just at the edge of his vision, a shadow darted away, gliding through the water like a wraith. Panic surged through him as he followed, pushing against the weight of the ocean that threatened to hold him back. Nina. He rasped through the communication device, though he felt the pressure warping his voice into a haunting whisper. Do you see that? Nina nodded, her eyes wide behind her visor. He could see her breath hitch before she pointed, indicating that they should pursue it together. Synchronous movements felt nearly impossible in the swirling darkness, but they pressed on, the flickering figure always just out of reach. As they ventured deeper, Jack's lungs began to burn. The urge to resurface gnawed at him, but Tom's image anchored him. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter that had once been shared. If there was any chance to bring him back from this nightmare, he couldn't falter. Then they saw it, a silhouette hovering in the foggy shimmer of the filtered light. It was still, too still, surrounded by a darkness that seemed to pulse and breathe. The outline morphed, flickering between familiarity and horror. Was it Tom, or something more sinister? Suddenly, the water around them turned frigid, an unnatural chill that opened a void in Jack's stomach. Nina shivered, clutching Jack's arm, her eyes filled with fear. Jack shot her a reassuring nod, though he felt anything but calm. Stay close, he urged, and they pressed forward, heartbeats syncing with each other. The shadow turned fully towards them. Jack's mind raced. It had Tom's face but twisted, distorted by an expression of pure anguish. Jack, help me. The voice was soft and cracked, reverberating eerily in the water. But it wasn't a sound, it was a feeling, a deep, resonating call that tugged at his soul. Nina, wait! Jack shouted, instinct screaming for him to pull back. But it was too late. Nina dashed forward, reaching for the ghostly figure. In an instant, the water erupted around them as if the sea had grown furious over their trespass. Jack gripped Nina's arm tightly, pulling her back. No, it's not him. But her eyes were glazed over. Fixed on the apparition, the shadow lunged. The darkness swirled and roared, a cacophony of despair that sent icy tendrils coiling around Jack's limbs. He gasped, gasping for air in a world that was swallowing them whole. The pressure intensified, squeezing the breath from his lungs, and he felt a pull, a force determined to drag him deeper. Deeper still no. He screamed, fighting against the tide. But in the depths, hope slipped like sand through his fingers. The apparition twisted, turning feral, revealing a maelstrom of lost souls trapped within its depths. They wailed in unison, their cries mingling in Jack's mind, drowning out his thoughts in a chaotic symphony of grief and rage. Each face bore scars of betrayal and anguish, eyes full of pain. Jack kicked desperately, but the water held him back, and Nina was lost beneath the surface. Nina, he choked out, panic clawing at him. The last thing he saw before darkness enveloped him was the flicker of Nina's silhouette merging with the ghostly figure, her scream drowning in the abyss. He fought to break free, the cold, spiraling darkness closing in. Would he join them in their torment? Could he face the ghosts of the damned? Or would he become another whisper in the watery void? The shadows encircled him tighter as he sank deeper into the abyss, and then it happened. A flash, a jolt, his heart stopping in his chest. Faces of the departed stared back. And within that haunting void, a realization ignited. This was only the beginning. But what awaited on the other side of the shadows? Cold, bone-chilling cold gripped Jack as darkness enveloped him, suffocating and absolute. The abyss surged around him, pressing closer with every heartbeat. Thoughts fragmented. What had he seen? What had he lost? Panic flared, but amidst the terror, a stubborn fire burned deep within. He wasn't prepared to vanish here, not without a fight. Get up, he thought, though the crushing weight made it feel futile. Jack pushed against the tide, arms flailing, muscles straining, but the shadows clung tighter, a relentless embrace of despair. He gasped again, lungs screaming for air that wouldn't come, and then he was falling. The silhouettes hovered around him like specters, faces twisted in agony, longing, and anger. Jack caught flashes of their stories in their eyes, a woman reaching for a child, a man's final plea for forgiveness. Each one a fragment of a memory, a life snuffed out, echoing their tragedies within him. Help me, the soft voices whispered, their power drawing him deeper. He fought against the tide, and each struggling kick sent a wave of memory crashing over him, moments with Tom flooding his mind. Laughter, adventure, the shared dreams of discovery. But now, Tom's face twisted into that distorted mask of anguish, and Jack's heart churned with betrayal. No, Tom wouldn't want this. His resolve strengthened. He had to break free. Clenching his jaw, Jack focused. The weight of the water felt like chains, but the faces of the lost ignited his fury. He pushed back, arms pulling against the current, pushing through the shadows, drawing on every ounce of willpower he had left. Then something shifted. The darkness flickered, a promise of light breaking through, and he grasped it. Jack felt a surge. Was it hope? A glimmer of clarity in the swirling chaos. He surged upward, every kick bringing him closer to the surface, bursting forth in a desperate gasp for air that tasted of salt and freedom. But just as the surface drew near, he was yanked back, the weight of unseen hands dragging him into the deep again. No. The word tore from his lips, a raw cry filled with rage and fear. He caught a glimpse of Nina, her face remodeling into terror as those shadowy fingers closed around her, pulling her down, down, down. Jack! The word echoed in the depths, a pleading cry that echoed within him. It didn't matter that he wasn't sure if she was gone or ensnared in that dark realm. He couldn't lose her too. With renewed purpose, Jack pushed harder, clawing upward, fighting against whatever monstrosity twisted the waters around him. But the pull of the souls was relentless, and the agonizing cries reached a maddening crescendo. He could almost feel their icy breath on the back of his neck. Was he too late? The world around him flickered in and out, light and dark battling for dominance. And just as he could barely see the surface, a strong force ripped him back, dragging him into darkness until he felt a warm hand clasping his wrist. "Tom," Jack spluttered, refusing to believe, refusing to fail. But instead, eyes met that twisted visage under the sea, and in that moment of recognition, horror slammed through him. "Help him." It was Nina's voice now, more desperate than he had ever heard it, breaking against the chaos surrounding them. "They want you too." Jack's pulse raced. What did they want? Was it Tom's soul? Or a sacrifice? In that moment, truth dawned. The dark temptation that lingered at the edges of his memories stirred, more real than ever. He had to choose. Suddenly, the sea erupted. Power surged through the water like a shockwave. Jack was thrown sideways, and with that, not knowing if it was help or harm, he reached for the warmth of Nina's hand with all he had. But as their fingers brushed, the shadows lunged again, swirling around them, hungry and furious. What choice would leave salvation in its wake, and what price would he pay? Each heartbeat thrummed with the unholy promise of the abyss. The haunting thrall of souls beckoned, urging, pulling him down. What awaited Jack at the end of this struggle? Would he embrace the darkness or defy the depths? The answer lingered in the water, drifting just beyond his reach. The grip of the shadows tightened as Jack and Nina fought against the current. The cries of the lost twisted around them, rising and falling like a discordant lullaby, each note striking a blow to Jack's resolve. It was as if the very essence of despair was alive, pulsating with the agony of souls yearning for release. "Don't let go," he shouted, terror mingling with defiance. The words slipped from his mouth, but the water rushed to swallow them, drowning his voice beneath the tumult. Nina's eyes were wide, gleaming with unshed tears and a flickering glimmer of hope, but that hope was slipping like sand through his fingers. "You have to choose." Tom's distorted face loomed near, lips moving soundlessly as if to emphasize the dread of that ultimatum. Jack's heart raced, squeezing against the pulses of fear that encircled him. What choice? What could he relinquish that wouldn't plunge them deeper into this nightmare? The water surged violently, ripping them apart for an agonizing moment. Jack felt the cold seep into his bones, and with sheer force of will, he lunged toward Nina, their hands colliding again through the vortex of darkness. "I want to lose you." He clung to her, but the shadows were relentless, clawing at them like a swarm of angry bees, intent on dragging them back into the abyss. As the tide wrestled with their bodies, something solid crashed into him, a lost object of despair taking form. It was a shattered fragment of a vessel, part of a memory of those who fell to the depths, and in that moment, Jack understood. The souls demanded something, a balance of trade for release. But what was he willing to pay? "Jack, the anchor." "We have to," Nina shouted, but her voice was drowned out by a boom of water crashing around them. The pressure of the abyss tightened, and within the chaos, Jack found a single, flickering thought amid the sea of grief. His own life was not enough. A spiraling current hurled him towards the surface, and he thrust his body upward, every muscle screaming in protest. His lungs burned as he fought against the cold grip of despair that threatened to pull him back down. He emerged, gasping for air, his eyes wide in wild panic. He was alive, but just barely. Above the chaos below, the starlit sky spun above him, serene and bright, mocking his struggle. "Jack!" Nina's anguished cry broke the surface of his thoughts, and he turned to find her still submerged. The shadows surrounded her, a billowing cloak of sorrow and loss. Ensnared, she reached out desperately, fingers stretching as if she could bridge the chasm between them. In that instant, so much rushed back to him: the laughter of their shared lives, the bright days by the ocean, all the warm moments that had sustained him now laid bare against the bleak pull of the depths. Was it worth all this? "I choose you," he screamed, heart pounding with revelation. With those words, a jolt surged through him, a flicker of clarity amidst the murk. Jack dove back beneath the water, ripping through the blackness towards Nina, the dark claws reaching out, furious. He was swimming not only to save her, but to confront their demons. As he broke the surface once more, their hands locked in a fierce grip, the shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing. Faces emerged from the depths, eyes burning with rage and sorrow, all demanding a reckoning. The manifestation swirled around them, the wounded souls now staring down with intensity, their voices mingling in a haunting chorus. Release us or join us, Jack's heart beat in wild syncopation. This was the capstone of their ordeal. Either he would unleash the flood of his own darkness or confront them head-on. Fight them. Nina rasped through a breathless gaggle of fear. Time fractured, unwinding in jagged shards of desperation. Jack squeezed Nina's hand tighter, ready to face whatever he had to, ready to give up everything for the sliver of light he still held. And then, from within, that flickering hope turned into a raging inferno. Not today, not now. You'll stay trapped. He roared, as their voices clashed with the chorus of the damned. A tempest of light blazed within the depths, a storm to rival the darkness. Would this be enough? Would they finally free the restless spirits? Or would the shadows consume them both? The fight was just beginning. The void trembled, pulsating with the clamor of souls that sought to break free from their watery prison. Jack felt the surge of energy radiate from him and Nina, a white-hot force igniting the air around them. It felt divine, yet chaotic, a hint of hope mingled with the weight of despair that threatened to crush him like a stone. The faces of the damned loomed ever closer, their mouths twisted into howls of agony, each sound like shards of glass cutting through the veneer of their fragile resolve. Every wretched gaze anchored Jack's heart deeper into a morass of guilt. He thought of Tom, the friend he had lost to these very depths. Had his inaction contributed to that fate? A bitter question gnawed at him, fueling a deeper determination. Keep holding on, Jack yelled, pulling Nina closer. She fought against the current, her strength wavering, but their bond seemed to pulse through the abyss with a defiance that reverberated in Jack's bones. He could feel her will battling, pushing against the encroaching hopelessness. Jack, we have to choose. Nina gasped, her voice quaking with fear. Her eyes flickered with desperation, searching his. Choose what? Jack screamed, terror slicing through his stability. The shadows curled around them, tendrils seeking to pry them apart. Choose what to abandon. Tom's echoing face flashed in his mind, and Jack could almost hear him say, sacrifice. It's the only way. At that moment, a realization struck him with a staggering force. We're not the first. This cycle, it's been here longer than us. Each flickering specter told a tale of despair. They weren't just lost souls. They were intertwined in a web of infinite loss. If they were to break free, it wouldn't just be for them. A flash of light erupted from Jack as his fury met the reach of despair, a furious will igniting through him. No more. Let them go, he bellowed, feeling the surge of heat wash over him. Suddenly, an otherworldly current began to swirl. The mournful cries turned to shrieks of indignation as Jack's spirit and Nina's harmonized in a crescendo against the imprisoned souls. The darkness splintered for just a heartbeat. Hope weaved a thread between them, tightening, refusing to let go. Take their pain, Jack, Nina urged, her words sharp and clear. You have to let it in. What she asked was a sacrificial plunge into grief, yet he understood it meant embracing all that had been lost, yours and others. Jack closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, inviting the ghosts. The shadows of grief flooded him, memories seeping like a bad dream. Tom's laughter shifted into screams. Nina's face twisted in agony as memories of past love turned into demolished hopes. I'm here, Jack confessed, feeling the terror within him transform into raw energy. You are seen. He embraced the darkness, feeling the anguish reverberate through his heart, allowing the memories to wash over him like salt on an open wound. With each surge of despair felt, he became tethered to every lost soul, all yearning for redemption, but the shadows retaliated. They drew closer, pressing against him and Nina with bruising ferocity. No, this wouldn't be the end. With a vulnerable scream, Jack released the heaviness of sorrow, allowing it to explode outward in a pulse of light so blinding, it singularly resonated against the dark. Shatter. The force billowed outwards, scattering shadows in vibrant defiance. Faces flashed in front of him, each moment sharing a scream, an echo of release. Jack's heart pounded as the spectrum of life fought against the darkness. But was it enough? Did he have what it took to save them all? As the tumult rose, The shadows began to dissipate, reluctantly releasing their grip. But a dark corner of his mind shouted otherwise, whispered fears of a loss worse than any despair. And in the distance, a figure emerged from the murk, eyes blazing the same eyes he had lost to the depths. Tom stood there, not just a specter, but an embodiment of the damned. "Jack, you thought this would be enough?" Tom's voice twisted through the water, sending a shiver crawling down Jack's spine. The final battle was looming, and Jack realized he was out of time to decide. Would he save his friend, or seal his own fate? This isn't over. Tom sneered, and the water surged dangerously around them. A reckoning was coming. Jack braced himself, knowing that their true ordeal had yet to begin. The echoes of Tom's taunt hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the past. Jack could feel the weight of the abyss pressing closer, its oppressive darkness clawing for his soul. He steadied himself, heart racing, adrenaline surging, ready to face the impossible. "Jack, focus!" Nina shouted, her voice slicing through the fog of despair. He turned to her, her eyes wide with fear but burning with defiance. Together, they had to stand against this torment. Their hands locked, fingers entwined, grounding each other against the tide of sorrow threatening to swallow them whole. Tom advanced, his figure shimmering like a mirage. The flickering light danced off his translucent skin. Each step echoed with the quiet lament of the damned. Jack's memories collided with the present. Laughter turned to screams. Joys twisted into agony. Guilt coursed through him, bitter and wild, but fury ignited a fire deep inside. "Why are you doing this, Tom?" Jack yelled, his voice laced with desperation. "We can end this together." "I never wanted to leave you," Tom spat. "But you chose to forget." Jack recoiled as the shadows danced wildly around Tom, wrapping around him like serpents. They hissed and woven a tapestry of despair, whispering his deepest fears. He couldn't let go, couldn't let the darkness win. "Bring back what you lost." The shadows screeched in unison, their voices melding with Tom's in a cacophony of pain, demanding restitution. "What do you want from me?" Jack bellowed, feeling like he was unraveling. He could feel the weight of choices stacking against him, towering like a mausoleum. Memories clung to him like barnacles, each painful image thrusting him deeper into an inescapable trap. Then, a flicker, a vision of his father. "Don't let the ghosts take your heart." The old man's voice resonated with strength, giving Jack a shield against the onslaught. "Tom, I'm here. I'm ready to fight," Jack shouted, clenching his jaw, strength surging as he raised his hand. Nina turned to him, her eyes wide with cautious hope. "Channel it, Jack. Don't fight them, embrace their pain." Her words ignited a spark. He inhaled deeply, letting the raw grief flow through him. Memories of Tom, intertwined with loss, filled him with an overwhelming surge. This was not just his loss. It was a collective scream of the lost, echoing through the murk. Together he half-whispered, forcing it through clenched teeth. The shadows recoiled momentarily. Jack's energy swirled, illuminating the darkness around him. A wave of warmth spread from his heart, battling the icy grip of despair. "I see you. I remember," Jack declared. "You aren't forgotten." The shadows surged forward, a torrent of anguished faces twisting into a whirlpool of haunting memories. They lashed against him, trying to tear him apart. Jack's resolve deepened. He drew Nina closer, feeling her strength meld with his. And then, out of the chaos, Jack felt a shimmering pulse, the very essence of life breaking through the waves. "Tom," Jack bellowed, "you are not your pain. Let it go?" Tom's face flickered, confusion swirling in his eyes, grappling with disbelief. For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, but then the darkness lashed back. "You cannot escape your past," it cried, a shriek that echoed through the depths, threatening to crush their fragile hope. "I'm done running," Jack shouted back, voice thunderous. "This ends now." He felt an eruption of light surging from deep within him, radiant and fierce. It exploded outward, colliding with the shadows in a dazzling confrontation. Jack's heart raced as he feared he might be undone from the immense force battling around them. The air crackled with tension, vibrating with deep energy that churned the water into chaos. But as he fought against the encroaching darkness, something new stirred. A pulsing presence rose in the depths. It called to him, familiar yet shadowy, drawing him into its depths. Jack, don't fight what you don't understand. He froze, feeling a chill creep down his spine as dread welled up within him. What was submerged beneath the chaos? What else might he have left to lose? The question reverberated like a drum in his mind. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the abyss had something more sinister planned. The shadows roiled, shifting, as if sensing the very foundation of his fears. The confrontation teetered on the edge of finality, and Jack could feel time slipping away. What truth remained hidden in the murk? An answer pulsed just beneath the surface, waiting to slip through the fingers of light. The darkness pulsed around Jack, a living entity desperately clawing for his sanity. He felt the icy grip of fear squeeze harder as he sensed the pressure building. The shadows were no longer just remnants of his memories. They were sentient, hungry for his despair. "Jack, watch out!" Nina yelled, just as a swirl of shadows lunged at him with blinding speed. He dodged, heart hammering, as the dark mass grazed his shoulder, leaving a frigid burn. It felt like the kiss of death, sharp and suffocating. "Stay close," he shouted, seizing her hand tighter. But his voice quivered, caught in the suffocating grip of dread. All around them, the shadows writhed like a storm, howling in a language that twisted the very fibers of reality. The air thickened, charged with an electric tension that threatened to snap. "Embrace it, Jack. Remember," Nina cried, her voice a beacon amidst the chaos. Her determination breathed vitality into his shaking frame. Igniting memories, they synchronized their thoughts, standing a better chance together. That a vision flared in his mind, Tom and him, boyhood friends on a summer day, their laughter mingling with the sun's warm rays. But the laughter faded and twisted into echoes of weeping. Jack shook his head, forcing himself to hold on. No more running. He clenched his jaw, channeling everything he had into a single thought. "Tom, I won't let you drown in this." The words reverberated like a gunshot. The shadows hesitated, flickering uncertainly. Jack felt something shift. They were listening. He took a deep breath, memories cascading over him like a tide. The exhilarating moments blended with grief, intertwining into clarity. "I remember everything. Your pain is my pain. Let us be free." With each word, the darkness pulsed, retreating slightly, as if anticipating what was to come. But a deeper voice cut through, cold and mocking. "Freedom isn't what you think, Jack." Jack turned toward the source. An entity, darker than the void surrounding them, emerged. Its features were a warped reflection of Tom, an echo of all they had shared, but twisted by torment and anger. "Your memories aren't a salvation. They're a prison." The apparition screeched, stretching its arm toward Jack. "Can you save a ghost, Jack? Can you hold back the tide of your failures?" Jack felt the ground tremble beneath them. The shadows surged once more, feeding off his fear, growing more cohesive, threatening to swallow him whole. "Don't listen to him," Nina shouted, as she steadied herself beside Jack. Her voice was fierce, a warrior's cry against the encroaching darkness. "You are stronger. We are stronger." Almost instinctively, Jack squeezed her hand. The warmth of her presence broke through the icy fear wrapping around his heart. "Together," he shouted, emboldened. With all his might, he called out, "Your memories can't trap me, Tom. I remember. I love you." The specter flickered violently, face contorting as if caught in a storm. Shadows shrieked, a cacophony that threatened to implode the very fabric of reality. But Jack felt it, an undeniable force igniting within him, a light powerful enough to push through the encroaching darkness. "Let go! Let go!" he shouted again, fighting the surge of despair wrapping him tighter. For a moment, Tom's figure stood still. The shadows hesitated, flickering like a candle before the wind, uncertainty casting a gray veil across the conflict. Then, something shifted, a pulse in the depths behind Tom, a feral, lurking presence eclipsing even Tom's tortured form. "Finish what you started," it whispered, an echo of desolation entwined with seduction. "You think you know fear? You haven't even begun to feel." Jack's breath caught. What had he truly unleashed? What murk lay beneath the shadows, waiting? As fear gripped him tighter, he recognized that their battle had only just begun. The shadows lunged forward again, wild and unforgiving. But this time, Jack stood firm. "We'll face it together," he shouted to Nina, her eyes reflecting fierce determination. But even as they braced for impact, Jack couldn't shake the rising dread. What awaited him in that deeper darkness? Was there a truth lurking below he'd wish he'd never discovered? The shadows surged again, and Jack felt the abyss reach out hungry, relentless, ready to swallow him whole. This time, the darkness whispered, "You will remember, or you will perish." The shadows converged, an army of nightmares thickening in the air. Jack's heart raced, pounding like a war drum in his ears. He glanced at Nina. She looked as terrified as he felt, yet her eyes burned with a fierce light that cut through the gloom. "Jack!" Her voice pierced through the chaos, filled with desperation. "You need to focus. Channel your memories, fight back." Memories clawed at Jack, each tugging in different directions as visions of laughter and joy danced with the horrors of loss. He felt the weight of Tom's betrayal, the suffocating grief clawing at the back of his mind. But he couldn't cave. He refused to let despair chain him. "Tom," he breathed, channeling the essence of their friendship into his words. "I carry your ghost, but I won't let it consume me." The name hung in the air like an echo, pulling an agonizing response from the dark figure looming before him. Tom's visage twisted, contorting in a grotesque display of agony and rage, shadows surrounding him writhing like venomous serpents hungry for flesh. "You don't understand," the creature bellowed. "This is what love feels like, haunted, broken." Jack stepped forward, the heat of Nina's grip steadying him. "No, this is your sorrow, not mine. I want to live in your pain." The shadows swelled, ensnaring Jack's legs, cold tendrils wrapping tighter, pulling him into the dark. Panic surged through him. He could feel the cold seep into his bones. His mind raced. How do you fight a phantom born from despair? "Remember your light," Nina shouted, her voice fiercely breaking through the cacophony of shadows. A flicker sparked in Jack's memory. The first time he and Tom had dived into the ocean depths, eager to explore the dazzling wonders beneath, colors shining vividly around them. They were invincible then, two boys with dreams that stretched into forever. He closed his eyes, forcing that moment into focus. A shimmering underwater paradise. They were just kids who had felt the sun's warmth on their backs and the thrill of adventure in their veins. "Tom!" Jack screamed, pushing through the dark pull as he clung to that memory. "We were more than this. We were brothers." The darkness trembled. Jack felt the entities swirling around them pause, caught off guard by the unyielding warmth radiating from his conviction. "Stop!" The shadowed figure of Tom snarled, his eyes once bright with life now glowed with a malevolent rage. "You'll drown in this abyss, Jack. You'll never escape." Jack's chest tightened. The growl of the shadows rattled through him. He turned to Nina, his pulse hammering. "What if I can't fight it?" "We can," Nina replied, her voice unwavering despite the shadows creeping closer. "Remember why you fight." Gathering his resolve, Jack poured every ounce of defiance into his next words. "I remember. I choose to live free from your pain. I refuse to carry this curse." The shadows flickered, the smile of despair fading momentarily from the figure of Tom. "You can't break the bond of suffering." With a leap of faith, Jack thrust his hands forward, envisioning a shield of light born from love. A radiant glow erupted from him, bright enough to pierce through the darkness, an explosion of imagery, vibrant memories coalescing into a protective barrier around them. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the light as the ground shook in protest. Jack anchored himself, focused on the warmth growing within him, the strength shared with Nina, turning the tide. Unseen forces collided as they pushed through the wave of despair. Jack felt the shadows retreat, but it was only a moment's respite, a brief calms before a storm unlike any he'd faced crashed upon them. From within the depths, the entity howled, a voice darker than night. "You think you can escape? Your fears are only beginning." The shadows surged back, 10 times fiercer, like an escapee from a nightmare, closing in around them, ready to pounce again. "What else can we do?" Jack gasped, eyes wide, gripping Nina's hand tighter, cracking under the unrelenting tension. "I'm not giving up," she declared fiercely. "Fight harder, Jack. Tap. Deeper." Lightning raw and invasive surged through Jack, igniting a new, burning determination. What more did he need to face? Could he confront the next wave? or would they be consumed? In the suffocating heat of despair, he felt it again, a deeper fear stirring beneath the shadows. The shadows were only a distraction. Something much darker lurked behind them, ready to strike. He opened his mouth to ask, but the darkness pushed closer, the very fabric around them tightening, pulling taut like a drawn bowstring. Can we truly hold it back? Jack wondered, fear now thrumming louder than hope. And beneath it all, the whisper grew clearer, more sinister. It was just the beginning of their dive into the depths. The shadows roared, a monstrous wave threatening to close in on Jack and Nina. The weight of everything they fought against pressed harder, the darkness wailing around them like a violent tempest. Jack squeezed his eyes shut, drawing on the fierce memories of joy, laughter, and the bond he shared with Tom. "We don't back down," he shouted into the void, determination burning in his chest like a beacon against the abyss. As Jack and Nina stood their ground, Tom's twisted figure loomed, morphing into an irreversible specter of sorrow. "You dare resist? This is your fate," Tom screeched, voice echoing within the inky blackness. But Jack could sense the faltering confidence in Tom's ghostly demeanor. "Tom, we were brothers. Friends. Let me help you break free from this torment," Jack shouted, each word crackling with resolve. The memories poured back, vibrant and clear. The days spent diving as kids, the endless possibilities that stretched across the horizon. They had been explorers of life, not prisoners shackled to their pain. The shadows paused again. The threat inched back for a heartbeat. But darkness is treacherous, and it lunged fiercely, more relentless than before. "Replace your bonds, Jack. Embrace despair. It is all you know." The oppressive force surged around them, tightening the noose. Jack could feel it drawing into his very soul, trying to rip apart all the light he had kindled. "Never," he spat, pulling Nina closer. Their hands clasped together, warmth spilling from their grip. An electric pulse surged between them, a tether that refused to break. "Together, we break this cycle," he proclaimed. Nina's eyes glimmered, fierce and unwavering despite the horror around them. "Don't forget your reasons for fighting. We are here, Jack." Her voice rang clear, shattering the torment creeping at the edges of his mind. Jack nodded, mentally revisiting every moment of joy, every shared dive with Tom, every promise of adventure that now felt like a lifeline. "You are loved, Tom. You are not forgotten. Come back to me." He summoned into the swirling chaos. The shadows wailed, retreating for just a moment as if struggling against the force of sincerity behind Jack's plea. Tom's figure flickered, caught between wrath and a yearning for peace, writhing against the tide of memories swirling in. "You think you can free me from my own chains?" His tone faltered, vulnerability creeping into his words. "No, Tom. This is your old pain trying to trap you. Embrace who you were with me. We can face this together." Jack shouted again with fervor, feeling the pulse of bravery emanate from within. The shadows trembled, shrieking with anger as they twisted tightly around Tom, leaving patterns of pain carved from sorrow and abandonment. Jack felt a surge of emotions crashing down within him: love, guilt, loss pressing against his chest, each one demanding recognition. "Give your pain to the light. Let it shine through," Jack insisted, realizing that the shadows wanted to feast upon despair, not light. With every ounce of focus he could muster, Jack poured himself into the light he held with Nina, summoning the brightness to break the chains binding Tom. The crushed souls, those remnants of the past, cried out in harmony, joining Jack's voice. Together, they illuminated the void, an army against the malevolence that had taken shape around them. And then, with a jolt, it happened. A surge of energy exploded from the two of them, weaving together, mixing past and present, memories of laughter entwining with the sorrow. Jack's heart raced. Could it work? The darkness pulsed violently, grasping, clawing against the light. But they pressed through, their connection shining like a lighthouse cutting through the storm, illuminating the truth buried deep within the shadows. "You are free, Tom. Let go of this cycle," Jack shouted again, igniting the flicker of light breaking through the darkness. And then it happened. The shadows screamed, folding back, retreating from the rising tide of warmth spreading outward. Tom's figure flickered, twisting in agony and relief, caught in a storm of emotions. "Jack, why do you still care?" Because you're my friend. Jack yelled. You're a part of me. We fought together, and we can conquer this. The abyss trembled. Fissures erupting, the darkness light burst forth like a wildfire, wrapping around Tom, breaking the chains that had sealed him in sorrow. No, you can't. The shadows howled, disintegrating in the face of unfettered brightness. And then, just as a sanctified beacon, Tom's form began to shift, becoming a light unto itself rather than a specter. His anguished face transformed, from that twisted mask of rage to warm recognition. The darkness shrieked in final despair, unable to survive beneath the might of love. Goodbye. Jack. Tom's voice melded into the warmth, filled with gratitude, and he began to ascend into the shimmering light radiating beyond the shadows. I will always be with you. As the last tendrils of darkness faded away, Jack felt an overwhelming relief wash over him. The abyss whispered its last cries, and as Tom's spirit shimmered and disappeared, Jack's heart felt a pressing weight lift. The ocean settled, silencing the chaos. It finally surrendered. And then, Jack found himself breaking through the surface, lungs gasping for air, feeling the heavy weight of the darkness slowly lift from his body. Above him, the moonlight bathed Maple Harbor in a soft glow, the night calm once again. Jack looked around, taking in the clear sky, heart racing with ferocious joy and stinging sadness. Nina surfaced beside him, wide-eyed with disbelief and relief. Did we win? Yes, we did. Jack beamed, relief flooding through him, warmth keeping his heart steady. As he pulled Nina closer, their hearts began to heal. Jack knew there would still be scars and a journey ahead. The wounds of loss could take time, yet through the darkness, they had emerged victorious. Together, they would share the lessons learned, reminisce about laughter, and honor the love that would forever bind them, bridging past and present, two hearts sustaining one another in the ebb and flow of life. Together, Jack said softly, letting hope ink their next chapters, binding their souls away from the shadows forever onward. Now, before the story ends, don't leave just yet. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. I'm counting on you. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about this haunting finale. And for the love of adventure, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and be a part of the next chapter.